Hi everyone, and welcome to TomWasHere at the movies, where we rate new movies, both new in theaters and new streaming, and give honest opinions and reviews on them. And today, I suffered through Home Team on Netflix. Still currently, as of this recording, in the top 10 of Netflix, and oh boy is it bad. So let's do a honestly brutal review of Home Team. Okay, so here's all you need to know about the movie Home Team. It stars Kevin James. It is a Happy Madison production. And for those, there was a time in the early 90s when Adam Sandler put out a movie. Now, I will say this. Adam Sandler, other than in producing credit, has no affiliation with this movie, and he knew better not to cameo in this one, because it's bad. But in this case, Kevin James, one of his running buddies, really the only, one of those people that he constantly gets work. Rob Schneider's also in this one. Same role applies. This is the supposed very loosely based true story of Sean Payton. Sean Payton, who you may be familiar with, was the now former coach of the New Orleans Saints. He's only the former coach because he looked at his payroll and realized he was $80 million over the cap and they couldn't compete, and he politely resigned. Because they're going to be real bad this year. They got to cut so much salary. But anywho, in this movie, and once again, I don't know who this movie was made for. When you first click on it, it says it's rated PG. PG would mean kids movie. But yet the first thing they get into, just about the first thing they get into, other than Sean Payton winning the Super Bowl, is Bountygate. Bountygate, for those that don't remember, was the NFL's biggest scandal at the time, prior to this week, where the NFL's going through another giant scandal. But in that case, the New Orleans Saints were paying players to injure players from the other team. And Sean Payton ended up getting suspended a year for this. I thought maybe because it's a PG movie and supposedly a comedy that they would gloss over this, but they didn't. They actually used real reports and real things that showed Sean Payton getting suspended and them kind of picking on Sean Payton for doing this and kind of all that stuff. So they really jumped into it. So imagine it's a movie for children, but the first thing you have to explain to them is what Bountygate is. And so already, it's an odd, strange concept. But the whole hook is that in real life, Sean Payton got suspended from the NFL for a year for his role in Bountygate, being the head coach. And he ended up coaching his son's 6th grade football team. This is the real story. In this movie, the same thing applies, except for they attempt to make... I don't even know if they're attempting to make things funny. It might be the most unfunny movie I have ever watched. And that's saying something. If you are attempting to make a movie, you have to, find comedy writers, if it's a comedy, to make jokes. And yet in this movie, it's so painfully unfunny. There's a running gag on how Sean Payton decides to stay at a Best Western, and the only thing he can stay in is the presidential suite, and it has a hot tub that keeps gurgling in the middle of the night, and he calls down to the night manager or the clerk, and the clerk's like, well, I can bring up a fan. And that's the joke. That's the best joke in the movie. You know what I mean? This is what you're dealing with here. I don't know, like I said, I don't know who this movie's for. If it's a kid's movie, it's a situation where you have these kids and, you've seen it before ever since the Bad News Bears, and it's been done way better in Necessary Roughness and Little Giants and movies like that where it's the lovable loser team and they find a way to win. The Mighty Ducks have done it. There's so many movies that have done this concept. But the only difference between those movies in this movie is those movies are good and this movie is bad. None of the kids are anything noteworthy other than kind of like ghosts or skeletons of more fleshed out characters in the other movie. Like, think about Little Giants, where you had like Rad Tad and Hot Hands and Icebox and all these great characters, and in this movie you just have like the one kid's really good, and then there's the coach's son and he's good. They're really the only two good players on the team, and then the rest of them are like kind of like lovable loser players that one's afraid to tackle and one can't kick because he's distracted by a girl, and they're just like lazy like reasons or excuses. And of course you know the solution to what you know what's going to happen before I even reveal it. It ends up working out with the girl for no reason whatsoever for the kicker to get this girl for any reason. Like, they never establish what caused this girl to turn around. Like, she considers him a loser for most of the movie, and then suddenly, just in the nick of time, she's decided, like, oh no, he's alright. Like, I like him. That it's lazy. It's lazy storytelling. The kid that's afraid to tackle people suddenly is taking hits left and right. He decides, oh, I can be tackled, or I can run into people. Like, but lazy. Like, there's nothing. It's painfully apparent that this was just like a obligation to get like a cash grab. You know, I don't know if it's just like to get people work, or I don't know what the purpose is of this movie. You know, Kevin James, of course, you know, always the method actor, got into great shape to play Sean Payton. But, you know, it's funny, Sean Payton actually shows up in the end of this movie, and I was giving kind of Kevin James a hard time the entire film, like, well, he doesn't really look like Sean Payton at all, and he's a lump. And then when Sean Payton shows up, Sean Payton kind of looks like a lump, and I'm like, I'm not too familiar with, you know, New Orleans football, and I haven't really seen Sean Payton in, you know, a little bit of time other than the occasional game or sideline, but they do actually look pretty comparable, so maybe it's good casting after all. But he's not putting on a voice or an accent. There's a point in the movie where I'm asked questions about Sean Payton, like, is Sean Payton a deadbeat dad? Because that is addressed in this movie. And if you're Sean Payton, you're not dead. You're a current alive person, and the characters are loosely based on your life. Would you want a movie that's about you to give people the question that you're a deadbeat dad that doesn't go to your son's games or watch your son play football, or is too busy with work that you are never have any time for your son, and you have your ex-wife take care of him the entire time? Like, is that the hook that you want? No, they actually get into a real moment where the kid's like, basically, like, in probably the best part of the movie, because it was the one time I was actually interested, and of course nothing ever came of it, but the kid's basically like, anytime anybody asks about you, I have to make up stuff because you're not around, so implying that he's deadbeat dad. And then he goes, well, I'm here now, ask whatever you want. And then he asks the $1 million question, which is, are you guilty? Are you responsible for Bountygate? And I went, whoa, this movie's gonna get into a heavy topic, like whether Sean Payton, who obviously I would assume had to authorize such a thing, he cameos in the movie, so he's giving it basically his like tip of the cap. And he goes, well, I'm the head coach, so I have to take responsibility. They kind of, get around it. Basically, he gets around it without being committal, and basically implies that this was done without his knowing, and he's just, because he's the head coach, he's the fall guy for it. And so, it kind of hovers over the entire film, where he's trying to work his way back, and, the kid's resentful, and he's like, you're only here because you got suspended. Yeah, that's what the movie implies, that he's only here because he got suspended. And of course, he's only here because he got suspended, because he'd be coaching the Saints after all, and he wouldn't be attending his kids' games. But that's like that's also like a lazy plot point, where the kid's like, yeah, you don't care about me, you just, want to go back to coach. Yeah, that's his job. Of course he doesn't. But also, if you're Sean Payton, you don't have a work-life balance in any way, and you're basically, married to the Saints, and you don't ever watch your kids' games or go to your kids' games because you're to the Saints. And they even said at the end, he goes, the way they kind of white it out at the end is basically the kids he's like, oh, they figure it out, and they have this father-son bond now because he's like, maybe you should come to some games with me and stuff. He didn't bring his kid to games before this. He had such a strained relationship with his kid that his kid, he's the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and he hasn't, his son hasn't met Drew Brees and wants to meet Drew Brees and wants to go to games, and this is the first time this has occurred. What was this movie? I don't understand what the purpose of this movie is. I just know it's bad. It's so painfully bad. There isn't. If you watch this movie and you find something funny, let me know in the comments down below. Because everybody in it looked uninspired. In certain movies where you're like, oh, maybe it's bad, but people were having fun with it. I didn't get that vibe either. No one seems to be having any fun with it. They had these jokes. There were a couple times, and this is the true sign of bad writing. There were 3 times in the movie that I counted where a character says that another character had a funny line, implying that we're trying to convince you, and then they reiterate the line, or they say this person's funny, and then that person says something, and they're painfully not funny. And is that the writers attempting to convey to the audience, this is funny, this is supposed to be funny, and it's not? And then there's a point during the ending where, and I'll spoil the ending for you. What do I care? It's not worth a spoil. But in this case, the kicker who constantly, the joke is that he sees this girl, he freezes up, and he kicks the ball into the back of the center's, basically at the center's back or his ass or whatever. He just kicks it directly. Line drives it. So the hook being is that the girl, even though some issue occurred where he accidentally set her car on fire. Yeah, this is the movie we're dealing with. The girl decides to come around and be blow him a kiss and stuff like that, even though they don't establish any reason why this girl would give this kid the time of day. The kicker has the confidence, and it's to tie the game. It's to tie the game because Sean Payton's so competitive with the other coach that he only lets the 2 best players play, and all these other kids are on the bench. And, he gets convinced that, you care about us winning, you don't care about us. And so he lets the other kids play, and it comes down to a tie kick. A kick to tie. And they send in the kicker who can't kick. And, the girl turns around, and, she's all for him now. And so he has to make the big kick. Now, you're going to assume that, of course, he made the big kick. But in this case, he misses the big kick wide, and he kicks it in the scoreboard. And the scoreboard starts exploding like the natural or something. And so they lost the game. Painfully lost the game. And the announcer goes because the scoreboard starts blowing up, he goes, this is the perfect ending to a movie. Or the perfect ending to this, or, the perfect ending to something of that nature. And I'm like, is he trying to convince, are the screenwriters trying to convince me that this is the perfect ending to this? It's not. It's terrible. It's a bad ending to a bad movie. Nobody in this is funny. There are no memorable characters. And then they have this thing where Sean Payton, when he's with the Saints, a few things where he's with the Saints, he has an assistant that doesn't know anything about football. I don't know what her role is, but he asks her to scout RBs, and she makes up something, and it's running backs. If you didn't know what a running back was, but that's the jokes you're getting in this movie. They're not even childish. They're just bad. They're bad, unfunny jokes for a bad, unfunny movie. I'm going to rate this one as 1 star out of 5 stars. Buyer beware. Watch at your own risk. This is so bad. You know, it's funny. I clicked on this movie, and right before when I open up Netflix, it goes, "Hey, we're raising your rates starting this month." And I feel Netflix owes me a refund for watching this garbage. I feel that I should be owed this month, that Netflix should pay me to watch this movie. I watched it, so you don't have to. You do not have to watch this movie. It's so bad. It is unwatchably bad. It's not even a situation where you can, like, it's, you know, certain movies that's so good it's bad. This is, I already had the idea, like, this is going to be pretty bad. And then it was so much worse than I could have ever expected that I don't even... It might be punishment for shoplifting in several countries. I don't know, like I said, I don't know who this movie's for. If you're Sean Payton and it's for you, it made you out to look terrible. You look selfish. You look like you definitely, you know, where you did Bountygate, even though you danced around it because you were the one responsible. You look like a deadbeat dad. I just don't... Who was this for? And it's for kids. There's too much talk of the Bountygate situation. There's not any, like, kids jokes. Like the thing where, like, the kids couldn't understand the playbook, so he started doing plays where they were out with, like, food items. And so, like, he calls, like, Spider 2Y banana or whatever. That's not really what he called, but let's just say that's the call. And the kid's like, what? And it's like, extra nachos with all the guacamole. And the kid's like, got it, coach. Is this fun? Is this funny? Am I supposed to laugh? I'm pained by this. I'm pained that this is a movie that exists. I'm pained that it's a Netflix top 10. It is so bad. It makes Little Giants look like an Academy Award-winning film for Best Picture. Like, Little Giants is watchable. It's tolerable. There are times when it's intolerable because, you know, you have kids and they're trying their best, you know. But this is so much worse. I'm at a loss as to why this movie exists. You know what? I've changed my... It's not 1 star. It is 0 stars out of 5 stars. 0. I thought maybe 1's the lowest end of the scale, but 1 is... It's the worst. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. The attempts to be funny are lazy. The outcome is predictable. It makes the people in real life look awful. Like, Sean Payton looks terrible as a person. I don't see who this movie is for. So, don't watch this movie. I've warned you now. Do not watch this film. It's so bad. But that'll wrap it up. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me on Patreon like John Bailey did, you can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, a TomWasHere t-shirt, you can do so at Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, and Clubhouse. And the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association, links are in the description below. Did you watch this movie? I'm sorry if you did. And if you got this far, let me know in the comments below your thoughts on it. I really want to see, is there any one of you that like this movie? Or likes just about any of the Happy Madison movies, the ones without Adams, even the ones with Adam Sandler and more recently, the Netflix ones, they're just lazy, uninspired watches that he's casting his friends and just making terrible, terrible movies. And I like Adam Sandler. I have Adam Sandler on the wall here from Happy Gilmore when it used to mean something. But now it's just a bad... It's not even like a bad cartoon. It's just... You know, I'm telling you not to watch it, but I'm almost telling you to watch it and let me know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the one that think, am I just the weirdo? Clearly people are watching this. Clearly people like this movie. if it's top 10 on Netflix, but it's so bad. So watch it or don't. I'm warning you not to. But if you do, let me know in the comments below and agree with me, like I know most of you will, on how truly bad this movie is. But guys, thank you so much for watching. And until the next episode of Tom Was Here at the Movies, we will see you soon. But until then, bye everyone.